All right, family, if you're coming in, man, we are having a different format. We're going to try this out here for a couple weeks. Just some feedback I got from kind of one of our mentors is um, in this day and age, in this trust recession that we're experiencing, people want to be able to ask their questions live. They want to be able to engage. They want to be able to, speak directly to someone, right? An expert and get their answers. So, long story short, we're going to start doing for our cash flow classes here for the rest of the year. We're going to start doing live Q&As. So the way this is going to work, y'all, is you're going to jump into the Facebook chat, right? Ask your questions, and we will do our absolute best to answer those questions for you. In the meantime, we're looking to add a co-host or some special guests to come in and chop it up with us, so we can have some conversations, so you can hear some of these conversations that happens, but behind closed doors about finance and money. But really, more importantly, y'all, is we want to continue to get you the tools you need to be successful, to win out here. Um, Times we are in interesting times currently, and because we are in these interesting times, y'all, like, it is going to be so vitally important that you really get your finances in order, that you really start to dive into, how to not be a part of the system, but to actually own the system, the financial system that you're a part of. So I'm super excited to be here, y'all. So just, hey, we got people joining us in here. My brother Troy back in the day. What's up, hometown? Glad seeing you in here, family. Robin, how are you? And like I said, this is just live Q&A today. So I'll get the party started here. Have some questions that we had teed up already. I'm going to answer some of these questions, and then I want to open it up for you guys. So type your questions in the comments, and we're going to answer these questions in real time. So the first question I think we'll kick off with is, how do I replace my paycheck with passive income in the next 3 to 5 years instead of waiting to retirement age? So let's call retirement age, 65, if you will. This is a really good question. And it's first, well, before we go there, understand that though I've been a traditional licensed financial advisor in investments as well as insurance for over 20 years, it was about 2 years ago that I had this aha moment that, there's a difference between retirement and becoming work optional. And that work optional piece for me was when I realized that though, retirement, traditional retirement is still something that a lot of people plan for, a lot of folks don't realize that they can actually become work optional in a fraction of the time. So we've been successful, not only with ourselves, with other folks as well, as helping them become work optional in 12 to 36 months. And how we've been able to do that is, first thing is, you think you have to replace your paycheck. You don't. That's one of the biggest misconceptions I think that people have is, man, I got to replace my paycheck with passive income. So if you're a six-figure earner, for example, and your gross income monthly is 8,300 a month, and then after taxes or whatnot, let's say that you're bringing home 7,000 or whatever the case may be, you might be thinking, I gotta, I make $100,000 a year. I need $100,000 in passive income. You actually don't. Okay. And let me tell you why. What you want to solve for are your expenses, right? Your income and your expenses should be different, right? So your income is what you want to solve for. That is how you're able to become work optional in 3 years, right? 3 to 5 years, 12 to 36 months, just depending on how quickly you move and kind of where your current financials are today. So when you first focus on your expenses, then it's like, okay, my monthly fixed expenses, and not including my lifestyle, but my monthly fixed expenses, let's call it $5,000 a month. Well, then that's the number you want to start to solve for, right? So if you start to solve for, hey, how do I create some passive income to cover 5,000 a month? Start to chunk it down, right? Have this end goal of, okay, I want to be work optional in 3 years. Okay, well, every year I need to figure out how to get, $1,700 a month, right? Every year I need to add an extra $1,700 a month to passive income. So year one may be, hey, let me get a couple of rental properties, right? Year one may be, hey, let me start my online course that I've been dragging my feet on and start to sell that. So you work your way up to it. You don't have to get the whole $5,000 today. That's what a lot of people think. No, you work your way up to it. Get to the point where you get your first 500, then you get your next 500, then you get your next 1,000, and then you build that up and work your way to it. Because at the point in time that your passive income is more than your living expenses, you're technically work optional, right? So that whole I got to replace my income, man, I got to get $100,000. No, because your $100,000 is your gross, and then you have your taxes and withholdings and all of that. If you're generating this, not through W-2 income, but through entrepreneurship journeys, you don't need as much money, right? They kind of give just I'm gonna call this a random number out there. For someone who's looking to replace, say, hey, I'm going to make $100,000 a year. You may only need to make $60,000, $70,000 with your business if you have a good tax plan in place, because it all comes down to your net. Gross means nothing when it comes to paying bills, right? Your gross is your gross, but you pay your bills and you live off of your net. So when you're an entrepreneur and you're set up the right way with the right tax deductions and write-offs and tax plannings and things of that nature, right? You don't need to make what you made in your W-2 job. You just need to make net, right? Enough to cover your monthly expenses. And that's how you work the way to become financially free, right? So anyway, want to share that first answer to that question with you. Let me jump in here and see if there's any questions in here. Anybody else got a question? What's going on, Carrie? What's going on, AJ Reese? Other questions in here. We're just, we're for the next rest of the year, we're trying out a format of kind of just a live Q&A. So I'll jump on here. We have some questions that people have already submitted, but I'm here for you guys. So what questions do y'all have that y'all want to talk about today? Let me see if there's anything here in the chat. Ooh, gosh. Okay, we got some good ones. Got some good ones. Okay. First, a question we got here in the chat. How do you concentrate and exceed multiple winner businesses when it's only you? Wow, good question. Okay. So have y'all heard that analogy of spinning plates, right? So the analogy with spinning plates when it comes to multitasking is you just can't pick up two plates, three plates at the same time and start. You're gonna drop all three of them, and they're all gonna break, right? So what you have to do is start to focus on your one plate. What is your primary plate? Let's call that your core plate, right? And get that spinning. And get that thing rocking and rolling. Okay. So you first start with your core plate before you even think about picking up a second plate. What is the core business? What I find with most entrepreneurs, they have what we call entrepreneur ADD, ADHD, ADD, ADHD, right? Combination of both. The deal is you can't do everything at the same time. You try to do everything at the same time, you're not going to do anything, right? And you're not going to be good at it. So focus on first getting the core one set up. Okay. Now, my personal opinion here, and I heard my sister say this one time as well, when you start looking at adding the multiple streams of income, which we totally believe in, but when you look to add that other business or that other strategy, does it actually support the core piece, right? So case in point, hey, you look into, Troy, I think you were sitting here, hey, looking to, become an insurance advisor. Okay, cool. But what is your core offering? Your core offering, I believe, is your growth businesses and things of that nature, right? You know what I'm saying? Kind of in the cannabis industry. So never lose sight of what your core is, but how can these other businesses complement your core, right? So case in point, hey, I'm a financial strategist, right? So that's one business. That's my core business, trying to help 1,000 homes become, 1,000 families become financially free. But my ancillary businesses that support that is my insurance business, my investment business, my coaching business, right? And even when we look holistically at everything, the real estate business is supporting that as well, because we want to be an example. We want to be like, hey, the things that we're suggesting you do, we're actually doing. So long story short, before you start looking at trying to grow multiple streams of income and dropping all the plates, get one plate going, right? Get one plate going where that plate is paying the bills, right? And do that before you start adding additional plates. And the cheat code is Add additional plates that support the core plate. If your core offering is selling hats and you want to create multiple streams of income, and now you're looking at, hey man, I'm going to go out here and start selling tractor trailers, right? Whoa, hold on. How does that align, right? Because what you don't want to do is start splitting your time all over the place. So that's why even what we do, you want to build a, ooh, this is good. You want to build a income ecosystem. I just made that up. Y'all write that down. Income ecosystem where everything supports each other, right? So that way you're not feeling all over the place. But long story short, get that plate spinning first. That was a good one. All right, cool. Let me see here. Mr. Robinson had one in here. What are the advantages of a REIT if you don't want to personally own residential property and there's an 8% return on investment, a reasonable number? Really good question, right? So for those who don't know what a REIT is, real estate investment trust, right? So um, very similar to a mutual fund, right? So let me first start with that, make sure we're clear on that, and we talk about the REIT. First of all, I really like REITs, but let me first tell you why. So if we think about stocks, right? When you buy individual stock, you buy one stock. So let's say you bought Amazon stock since it's been in the news. Well, if you all you bought is the Amazon stock and you put a couple thousand in it or whatever the case may be, your stock value is going to go up and down based upon that stock. Where a lot of people don't want the pressure of having to pick an individual stock. So then they'll pick what you call a mutual fund, right? And a mutual fund is just a bucket of a bunch of stocks. So they just have to pick the mutual fund and the fund company and all of that. And the fund company already has the fund manager in there. So instead of me like, oh my gosh, I got to go pick all of these stocks, I can pick a mutual fund where there's multiple stocks in there. Or I can pick like an ETF or index fund where I got to think about nothing. Hey, this index fund is going to buy all the 500 companies of the S&P 500. All I got to do is buy the fund, right? I'm sharing this with you because that's how real estate investment trust works. A real estate investment trust is effectively a bucket of real estate holdings, and they're all different, right? You're going to have some people who have real estate investment trusts where they're dealing with, commercial residential properties. You're gonna have some who are maybe dealing with, commercial retail properties. Maybe they're dealing. I've seen a REIT that only dealt with hospitals, right? That's where you have to go and do your research, okay? But effectively, what you're buying is investing in real estate by buying shares of this bucket. Okay. And with a real estate investment trust, they're required to distribute a very large portions of the rents that are collected. So that's one of the benefits of it. Again, let you guys research that. So if someone says like, man, I want to get into real estate, but I don't want to deal with that hand dancing. You know what I'm saying? This with me and AJ used to talk about that. The hand dancing. Hey, I got a leak. The toilet ain't working. Blah blah blah. Right? And you want to go through the hand dance. You can invest in a REIT. And though you have no control, you have no say so over what properties are bought and sold in that portfolio, you do get a lot of the benefits of the cash flow, right? So the question that was asked was, all right, bet, is an 8% return a reasonable number? What I love about this question is the answer is it depends, right? Because the reason I say it depends, everybody doesn't need to make an 8% return to hit their goal. So the question really is based upon the end goal, what's trying to get accomplished, and what you currently have today, what is the rate of return that you need to average in order to hit your goal? Then that's what's best for you. So, case in point, I remember having a conversation with a client, 15 years ago. They already had a huge nest egg, and it's like, Perry, I'm going to get 15, 20% return on the money. I'm like, why? Well, I want to be aggressive. I want to get 20% return on the money. I'm like, well, based upon what you have and the goal that we've predetermined, because every decision should be based upon an end goal, you only need about 3 to 5%, right? To go and get 15 and 20 means you're going to be aggressive and you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. 3 to 5% is very few ups and downs. It's pretty easy to knock down, right? So you can go and risk the money to get your 15, 20%. That's fine. But based upon your goals, you really need to get 3 to 5. So going back to that question about, hey, is 8% a reasonable number? The answer is it depends on what you want to knock down. Could you go out and get a higher return? Absolutely. You could put some money into crypto, right, and get a higher return. You might make that in a day versus a year, but also too, you could lose 20, 30% in a day or a year, right? So it's just when you think about return, is how much, what is the risk? Let me put it this way. What is the risk adjusted return? For this 8%, am I willing to take on the risk that's associated with getting that 8%? If the answer is no, then don't do it. If the answer is yes, then you're right, you make an educated decision on it. But at the end of the day, the return that you need to get on your money needs to be indicative and predetermined by the, you know what I'm saying, the end goal of what you want to get to. If I was to put some better clarity to it, if you had $100,000 to invest right now and your goal was to have 200,000 by a certain date, well then, hey, you know what I'm saying, if you say, hey, I want to have 200,000, I want to double the money in 10 years, rule of 72 means that you need a 7.2% return. Well, if that's the case, then well, 8% is pretty dang on good. But if like, man, in 10 years, you know what I'm saying, I want to have 300,000. Okay, well, you need a high rate of return. So are you willing to take that risk on those dollars? So that's how you kind of love it, kind of look at it from there. It depends. 8% for me may be amazing. 8% for somebody else may be like, I don't know. Okay, good question. Love this right here. David had a great question. How do you differentiate cash flow versus passive income? Okay, this is a good one. So I'm going to put my nerd hat on for a second. The two are typically interchanged, right? But if we really want to get into it, cash flow is technically what's left after income is received, expenses are paid, and what's left. That's typically the cash flow, right? A lot of folks will try to call their revenue cash flow. No, that's your revenue, right? So that is your top line number, or that is your top line income. Cash flow, how we like to define it, is what is left afterwards. That is the positive cash flow that is coming in. Passive income, as we like to define it within our platform, is the income that is coming in from assets, cash flow generating assets that you don't have to trade your time for money on a regular basis. So let me clarify that because it's a huge, huge debate out there about is passive income even a real deal, right? Understand something. If you're receiving passive income, that means that somebody's more than likely getting paid active income because for you not have to do anything, somebody has to do something, right? So David, this is how we like to think about it, right? Let's use real estate because that's a classic one right there. Hey, we get income from our rents. Then we have to pay the mortgages on those properties. And then what is left is our cash flow that we can consume, right? Now, the income that we're getting is the passive income. So that top line revenue is the passive income. Now, the question is, how passive is it? Well, my wife still got to take phone calls and be like, okay, this is out. Let me get somebody over there, right? Right. So somebody will argue like, well, that's not passive because you're still working. How we like to look at it is, did she have to go and work 8 to 10 hours a day to get that income? No. We bought the property once, we put the tenant in, and we're receiving the passive income coming in without having to trade our time for dollars. And it could turn to 100% passive if when we hire a property manager after she hits her 10th property, right? So now that's that. But cash flow is what's free and you can consume. You can consume cash flow. Passive income is what you're receiving without having to trade your time for dollars. All right, brother. Let me know if that was helpful to you, David. I appreciate that question, fam. Oh, good. Good. I'm glad you guys are taking advantage of this because I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know how this is gonna go. We kind of just decided to do this on a whim. Let me see what other questions we got in here. Any other questions here, family? Ba, 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 ba. Let me jump in here. Hold on here 1 second for me. Let me see where we are here. Let's see if there are any other questions you guys have, because this has been good. Man, this makes the time go by. Thank y'all so much for jumping on here and asking questions. I truly appreciate y'all. Uh, Thank y'all so much for jumping. I think we answered everything, y'all. Okay, cool. Hey David, appreciate the feedback, brother. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, y'all. Well, shoot. We only plan on doing these for maybe like a half an hour. We rock and roll today. Put this on your calendar. Depending on like travel and holidays or things of that nature, I would like to jump on here and do these on a regular basis, and then start bringing in some of our members as guests and kind of just having some conversations as well. But this was super, super dope. Glad y'all got a chance to rock with me here for a little bit, and we'll see you guys next week. All right, y'all. Peace.